Oh my gosh, we're here. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to wait for the stream to catch up really quick. We're going to let everyone join in and join. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Learning Classes. I'm Fuzz if you haven't met me around QA Central. It's really great to see all of you guys. On the stream, we have a Slido deck where you guys can ask questions, and at the end there, I'll answer all the questions that you guys might have. Stream to catch up. So I don't know if anybody saw that. You can take a look at the actual stream, or you can take a look at or Ninja sent a link earlier. Yeah, perfect, right there. Lieutenant Dan sent that in the chat. Thank you. Okay, we're just gonna give this like one more minute, and we're gonna let people get ready. But yeah, so sorry for us not hosting these learning classes as frequently as I'd expected it to. Life had kind of gotten me quite busy. And so that sort of kept me quite when creating feedback in a thread. So we're going to be taking a look over that in a little bit here. But otherwise, I think we are good to begin. All right. So to start off with, we're going to be going over the current best practices for QA Central. These are best practices that we have determined as this team will help you for success when you're going into any threads within QA Central. Doesn't matter if you're a brand new tester or an old tester, these are some of the best practices you can use to have the most success when testing within QA Central. So our first best practice is to test for about an hour. As you will probably notice, all of our tests are layered out, so the test lasts for exactly 1 hour. This is intentional because we expect testers to play for about an hour and then compile their feedback. An hour usually gives you enough time to experience the entirety of the game. It allows you to look for bugs, allows you to experience what the game has to offer, and will hopefully make you bored. Now, why do you want to be bored? Well, we want you to be able to be bored because if you're bored with the game, you're going to have suggestions, right? You're going to think, what would I add to this game to make it more interesting? What would I do to progress further? What would make this better for me? And that's what we want, because often developers are looking for suggestions to make their game better for the community that they're working with. So that's going to be the key thing that we're looking for when you play for an hour. You're going to get the most benefits, and you're going to be able to make the best suggestions for the game you're testing in question. Now, upon your first look over for the game, you're going to do as follows. You're going to do every task as you've been asked to. So usually developers in their request for a test will ask specifically for certain things for the testers to do. Sometimes this is as basic as, hey, I want to find bugs within my game. I want you guys to all play it and find as many bugs as you can. Or this will be a little bit more complicated as asking for just a play test or a stress test. Both of these are key because if you aren't listening to what the developer is asking you for, then you're going to be doing things that they don't need. If they're asking for a stress test and you're looking for bugs, they don't really care, right? Sure, they're happy that you've gone out and found a bug for them, but they're looking to ultimately stress test their game if they're asking for it. So make sure you listen and look and read exactly what the developer is asking for when they request that test and when the test begins. Now, let's go into just an easy example. Let's say the developer is asking, hey, I want you to test my game. I want you to find bugs. I just want you to find bugs. So on your first look over, this is where you're going to just play the game normally and see if something breaks. This can be as easy as the UI doesn't act as intended, or it can be as funny as a door just breaks entirely and you can't get through to the next level. Now, this is going to be key because you need recording software, right? It's great that you found a bug, but if you can't prove to the developer how you got that bug, you don't go into depth of how you found that bug, it's going to be really hard for that developer to understand what you're saying because you might have replication methods that are really hard to explain. So having a recording or some sort of clip to show that bug happening can often save you a lot of time and energy having to describe what your replication method is. Now, of course, when you're creating that feedback, you're of course going to describe your replication method and go over that, but a video can help supplement that replication method. So if something's not clear or concise, you at least have that supplementary evidence so that way the developer understands what you're saying. So we recommend using a clip software like Metal. I personally use Metal myself when I'm going through testing, but other testers might have different software that they like to use. I know Franklin has something different he uses, and his works great. There's a couple other people who use other clipping software. Some people use OBS. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you're able to utilize that to supplement your tests. Now, let's say you're experiencing a lot of lag. You know, you're playing the game, you had a really good experience, and you're lagging. You're lagging quite heavily. Here's what you're going to want to do. And again, this is best practices for QA Central. If you're experiencing lag in a game, your first step is to take a look at the micro profiler. The micro profiler is pretty easy to find. All you got to do is go into your Roblox settings and then scroll down. It's where the volume button is. There's going to be a on or off button for the micro profiler, and you can open it. I'm not going to go into too much depth of how the micro profiler works, but essentially it uses like a bar system. And if the bar goes really, really high, then, well, that means it's lagging. F7 and P also work. Thank you, Kapile. I really appreciate that. So those also work as ideas. But yeah, if you can take a look at the micro profiler, if you understand the micro profiler, use that immediately. If you're experiencing a lag spike, that's what you want to do. Now, if you experience a lag spike, micro profiler doesn't really tell you what's happening, what's with lag. All the micro profiler does is tell you that there is lag, right? Something you can pretty much clearly see. Now, if you don't know what's causing lag, well, this is where you're going to want to tell the developer in your thread that, hey, I was lagging. Tell them the device that you were on and what the specs were. Lower end devices are, of course, going to have more problems within Roblox. But if you have a high end device, that clearly states that it's not just you. Also within the micro profiler, I'm going to just go back to the micro profiler because why not? You can actually pause it. There's a button somewhere. Again, we're going to do a whole learning class about the micro profiler and how to actually utilize it properly for a test. That's going to be a future learning class. But it's just to tell you guys that it's there and that can be utilized and that you should probably try and utilize it if you can. So one of the most common ways for a developer to experience lag within their game, or for you as a tester to experience lag within your game, is it's going to be like if there's a ton of items being dropped, if there's a bunch of networks being fired, if you can clearly see that there's a bunch of things trying to load at the same time, that's going to cause a bunch of lag. That's the key thing to understanding with testing is that if it's lagging, is there a bunch of stuff loading? If there's not a bunch of stuff loading, then there's another problem and we need to go further in depth and take more of a look into it. So that's one of those key things you've got to be on the lookout when you're testing. Now, I'm going to quickly grab one of the best feedbacks for when we're going to be testing. So this comes courtesy of Franklin. I'm going to paste it into the chat. One second here. So I'm just going to paste this into the chat and I want you all to take a look at this. Okay, so it's a little weird, but as you can see, everyone, it's like quite lengthy. I'm also going to link to it from the original thread. So as everyone can take a look there, as you can see, it is lengthy. It is, but it is also very concise and clear. When Franklin's talking about suggestions, he clearly makes it clear that it's suggestions. He's got clear opinions on the tutorial, the gameplay. He uses bullet points to make it clean. He adds pictures, he adds videos. He directly links to his bugs. Yeah, Franklin uses Imgur. And he's exactly states what he feels needs to be improved upon. He is the epitome of a really, really good tester. He creates some of these amazing threads that, quite frankly, amaze me. But these are the types of things that you need to be working with, that you need to be understanding when you're creating threads, is that you're striving to do something like that. You're striving to have a concise thread that looks really, really nice. I'm going to post one more example of really, really good feedback, and then we're going to move on. This one should hopefully not get messed up here. Okay. Okay, so this is also from the same thread. It's from this thread's coming as from VEI. I believe VEI is in the audience. So again, amazing example of people doing amazing feedback for the developer. It's concise. It outlines exactly what the developer should be finding when you're reporting feedback for a developer. This is exactly what you want to be doing. Okay, now moving on. If you're a new tester, you're going to want to provide a little bit of feedback, but you're aiming to be lengthy. You're aiming, like, again, like these examples, you're aiming to be lengthy. You want to provide suggestions. You want to provide bugs. But this is a process. You can't just go from 0 to 100 right away. You need to take steps, and you need to look at key examples like this and strive to move forward and do better. Because if you do better and you keep moving forward and improving your feedback, you're going to get a lot more opportunities from developers as you continue your testing career. So going at your own pace is very, very key. Because again, you can't, as a new tester, you're not going to go from 0 to 100 on your first test or even your third or your fifth or sixth. You've got to learn how to go through the process. But starting out and trying to improve and trying these new methodologies will help you succeed a lot more than other people, than just going in blind. So Compile just said in the chat that Control P and Shift F7P also opens it. So that's for the micro profiler as an example for later. So now we're gonna dissect the actual feedback, right? Because you've seen a really good example of what that feedback is, but we haven't taken a look at the actual innards of it. So first things first, we've got bugs. So bugs is, well, the example, they're also really feedback. You provide bugs and you provide replication steps. This helps developers fix the issue, and it helps them know where to go. If there's a building issue, you want to show them where the building issue is. If it's a coding issue, you show them where the coding issue is. This is key because if you ever encounter a bug, you should open up your developer console immediately. Because if you open up the developer console and you see an error, especially with coding, that will help the developer fix it a lot faster than if you don't open up the developer console and just report a bug. Now, so when you're giving feedback, it should be constructive. You need to be very particular with your words because if you use specific words and you use it in a specific way, it's going to come across better for developers. So in the chat there is a really good example of bug references. If you open up, you see red text, that's bad. You want to report that to the developer. But also keep in mind you should be reading it with your words. If it's clearly something to do with specific words and you use it as specific, obviously that does need to be reported to the developer. They can see that as well. But if something related to your specific bug, there is a really usually the code will represent that in some sort of naming scheme, and you'll be able to tell if it's important. Now back to the actual feedback. Feedback should be constructive, but also keep in mind instead of saying something like, "Oh, this pet should be removed," or "This game sucks," your feedback should be constructive. It should be that this pet should be nerfed because of how overpowered it is, because of the stats of 50 million damages, right? Explaining why you're saying something. Don't just say it and not provide any context as to why you're saying it. Don't just say that a developer should remove something or should do this or should do that. Explain why. Why do you feel that way? Why do you think that they should do something? As a tester, your most important attribute is that you're acting like a player. You're acting like a prospective player who's going to play this game, and instead of just leaving the game and never returning, you're able to actually tell the developer how you feel about the game and what should be improved. So making sure that your feedback is constructive and fair. Now, some games are worse than others. Some have stuff that you don't like or stuff that you don't agree with. Your criticism of the game is very helpful because often developers want to know how players will feel when they play their game. It can be negative, but it needs to be carefully constructed. You can't just be mean to the developer and say, your game sucks, I don't like it. You obviously want to be fair to them and say, hey, I'm not a big fan of this game because this is my current playing style. This is how I play. So remember, would you want to be critiqued that way yourself? Obviously be fair. You want your criticism of the game to be fair and reasonable. If you would want that feedback for yourself, give it to the developer. If you wouldn't want someone saying that to you, don't do it. And make sure your criticism and your feedback is good and reasonable. Now, rating. Now, everyone's always seen the thumbs up button on a game they're testing, right? You get the early perks, you get to take a look at it, really fun. Now, don't do it. Do not put a thumbs up or thumbs down on that game. Don't do it. Rating the game is really not worth it. And also realistically, like you can also in your feedback rate the game on like a scale of 1 to 10, but it also isn't really worthwhile because you still have to explain why you're rating the game, why you are. You can't just say the game is a 0 out of 10 and just say, that's what it is. You obviously have to give an explanation, just like we've gone over with your feedback and criticism. You need to explain why you're saying something. If you explain why, it's going to come across a lot better to the developer and they're going to understand why you feel some way. Now, we're going to go into suggestions, right? Suggestions are very, very good for developers. Some may be adopted, some might not. When it comes to the creative process of developing, it can be very, very difficult to think of new ideas. And often, sometimes testers will give you a good idea. And so as the tester, feel free to speak your ideas. If you've got a really good idea, you feel it would fit this game perfectly, feel free to suggest it. Obviously, not all of them are going to be accepted. Some might be rejected, depending on the developer's vision. But make sure you do bring up suggestions if you have a good suggestion. Besides, you might not be great at finding bugs, but if you have a really good suggestion for the game, that's still contributing in a very meaningful way. Now, when it comes to feedback, you can also include 2 subcategories to your feedback. What you like most about the game and what you don't like the most about the game. So these are 2 subcategories you can add on the bottom of your feedback, where if you like something about the game or you want to highlight certain aspects of the game that you want the developer to understand from a tester's point of view, you should absolutely highlight it at the bottom of your feedback. So you can highlight what you felt was really, really good about the game. something that's unique and original that should be highlighted even more than it is, right? It can help the developer understand and maybe upgrade or make the items better than they already are. And you if there's something you really don't like about the game, you can say what you really didn't like the most. You can highlight the key aspects that might have gotten buried in your feedback and say, "Hey, this one it didn't really work for me," or "This just didn't pan out as I was expecting." Right? You're able to have expectations of a game beforehand and just say it out to, right to the developer. I was expecting this, and I was kind of disappointed. So I didn't really like this aspect of the game. You can say that. Just of course remember to be constructive and fair with your feedback. Now, obviously, when it comes to the ending of the feedback, you've got your you've got your final thoughts and feedback. This is usually the end of the feedback and bug reports is where you give your final thoughts, your final opinion, your final everything, right? Just like you may have done a thesis in school, this is the ending, right? This is your conclusion. You type out how you felt about the game, any potential you had, any final thoughts. You can maybe say, would I play the game? Maybe. You can express your opinions on the performance of the game. You can talk about optimization. Right? If mobile went horribly for you, you should highlight that. And your final thoughts and feedback say, hey, my experience on mobile was not great. You guys need to work harder on mobile support. And that's one of those aspects you're going to want to highlight. If you felt that the music was bad or if it was good or if the UI was really great, you should highlight that. Now, all of these little aspects of feedback can all be interchangeable. They can all be within each other. You don't even need to have a specific subheading for them. Obviously, if you can make different subheadings, that'll make it a lot easier for the developer to look and differentiate between bugs and feedback, right? Or suggestions. Obviously, it makes them easier because if they're not looking for suggestions, they don't care about your suggestions. They're not going to take your suggestions. If they're exactly looking for suggestions or they want your suggestions, then highlight them. But if not, you should definitely have a different subcategory for suggestions and bugs. It's just general good practices. Now, of course, within your feedback, within your thread, within everything, you want to be specific. If you have the time, try to word it out. Explain everything. You want the developers to understand because the developers aren't playing for you. They aren't watching your screen, seeing everything you're doing, and listening to what you do. Some developers will be on VC and you're able to talk with them, some might not be. So you need to explain everything because you can't ask your questions. You can't ask anything if you have no contact with the developer yourself. If you can't ask questions, you need to be specific. So you want the developer to understand everything you say, all the bugs, all the suggestions, everything you do. The developer should understand and be able to either replicate the bug or they should be able to understand exactly what you're talking about when you're making a suggestion or you're talking about something you disliked. Now, some of the best testers, their feedback will be 300 plus words. That should be what you strive for. Some games, of course, you're not going to be able to get to 300 plus words, but on games where you're testing for maybe a day or so, right? Because some people, they'll get opportunities where you're able to test for days and days and days. You're testing for multiple times over the week. You're putting in a lot of work. So obviously, you want to strive for a higher word count than you usually do. It's something to work towards, not something that you'll always hit. So just understand that if you can, try to get to 300 plus words if you can. If you can't, well, some games you can't get to 300 plus words, I'll tell you that one. And for the final best practices for QA Central, watch others and learn from others. This is going to be key because when it comes to QA testing, all of us have our different styles. All of us have our different ideas of how we like to test. We have our different softwares. We have our different steps of how we play the game. Some people, they'll just play the game completely wrong and do it backwards, right? Instead of playing the game normally, like I outlined prior, they're going to just play it differently. They're going to do everything they can to break everything they can as fast as they can. And that's fine. If you understand how to do it, wow, that's great. But, you know, you're going to want to learn from others. As a new tester, you need to work on learning. And that's why we're hosting these learning classes ultimately, because ultimately with QA testing, it's very secretive because there's not really any resources out there for testing. But some of the key things that you, without even the learning classes, talking to other testers, learning from other testers, participating in threads and just observing, seeing what other testers do will be very, very key into developing yourself as a good QA tester. You will improve dramatically if you watch the others, watch from the veterans, right? Some of my QA testing practices come from great testers who worked on the Valiant team, such as Spencer, Franklin, like some of the best testers I've learned from. That's how I've became such a decent tester, I'd say. So it's one of those things where you gotta look at the people who already know their stuff and learn from them. All right, I'm gonna quickly take a sip of coffee there. All right, so we're just gonna take a quick break here. I'm just gonna quickly do something really quick. Just gonna take a quick break. Everyone, hold off for just a second, and we'll be right back. All right, so we are back. We're back. We just had a quick coffee break. Quickly went to go reheat my coffee. We're doing great. So first things first, I'd just like again to thank everyone for coming out. Great, great turnout. 21 people, sometimes fluctuating to 23, but we're doing really, really good. We're gonna go over some of the slide questions, and then we're gonna go into a couple of last minute. Then we're gonna go into maybe some reveals. Maybe. For sure. All right, so we're gonna jump into Slido questions. So question number 1 from Kapile. Is providing memory usage better than an FPS report? So providing memory usage is useful for certain, depending on the situation, right? Because you can have memory leaks. And as you grow to be a better tester, you're going to want to learn how to identify memory leaks. You're going to want to identify all those key aspects of working with the developer console and the what's the other one? Oh man, I'm blanking. I'm blanking so hard. I'm throwing so hard. And the what's the other one? I was just talking about it. Micro profiler. That's it. Yeah, you're literally the only one who used the actual forum. So yeah, obviously you're going to want to get more integrated with the technology that's at our hands as testers. But using both will be great. As a tester, if you can provide a memory usage report, that's great. But if you can only provide an FPS report, if that's all you know how to do, either is acceptable. You're just going to want to provide something. You're going to want to bring the developer's attention to the problem. That's the whole point of testing, is bringing attention to a problem to a developer that they might not be aware of. So that's going to be key thing, is that both are great ideas, just whatever you're able to do. Because obviously it doesn't make sense to provide a memory usage report if you don't understand what a memory usage report is. If you don't understand anything about it, then it doesn't work. So no, the micro profiler is able to be enabled within the regular game.
That's correct.
Oh my gosh, we got a Franklin voice reveal. Okay, now Kapile. We got the next one. Somebody asked if we would have a lecture in the lesson for application testers yesterday. It's not a bad question. I would like to see it answered. So we can certainly slightly go over it. It's not like, the thing is with applications for testers, it's really difficult to have a universal lesson on it because each developer is looking for something different. Here's a clear example that just happened. So me and Franklin we're supposed to be testing for fish. Right? Everyone knows the big hit game of fishing. It was closed off, yada, 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 but then they opened up applications. This application required a certain amount of game time within the game. So obviously, if you meet those requirements, that's great. But if you don't meet those requirements, that doesn't matter how good of a testing portfolio you have, you probably won't be a tester for fish, and that's fine. But the big thing is just introduce yourself, right? Within QA Central, you have a unique opportunity to create a massive portfolio of games you've tested and experienced, right? You're able to promote yourself in a way that you wouldn't otherwise be able to as just a tester who's solo with trying to find testing gigs on their own. One of the key aspects you can definitely highlight is work on your Creator Hub profiler. I have my own Creator Hub profile. I can send in the chat here a little bit later. But if you work on that, if you update it with some of your best tests, those will help you stand out from everyone else in an application for a tester. But ultimately, the key advice I'd give for when you're applying to be a tester with any studio is just remember that you're trying to make yourself stand out, right? Of all the people that are going to apply for that testing position, what's going to make you different than everyone else? How are you going to stand out in a way that everyone else won't? Right? Because every application will be different, but if you find a way to make yourself stand out, otherwise, may that be some of the best, you have the best testing experience out of everybody, you want to highlight that, right? Maybe you're just really good at essays. Do that. You want to find a way for you to strike that balance between promoting yourself and showing the developer what you have to offer for their studio. If any of the other Valiants or anyone else who's done more testing applications would like to weigh in on this, feel free. So with the micro profiler, yeah, someone just asked, how should someone report a micro profiler to the developers? Should they send a screenshot? Should they send a micro profiler dump or something else? So this is another it depends situation. Yeah, Spencer just said, you gotta say I'm the best tester of all other people, and then start naming every experience you ever tested. Of course, for legal reasons, that's a joke. We're gonna sue Spencer later because he didn't add a "I'm not a lawyer" addition to that. But when you're reporting a micro profiler, it depends on what they're looking for. If you can, a screenshot will be pretty helpful. If you already know where the lag is coming from, you don't need to dump the entire micro profiler onto the developer, right? If it's just spiking when you do a certain activity, you can just screenshot when it spikes and just say, hey, when I do this action, it spikes. Or if it's just unusually high, you send that. Alternatively, if you can send a micro profiler dump in certain situations where you just have no idea, that's when you want to send a micro profiler dump, when you have no other idea of what's going on, right? Because the developer is going to be able to decipher that a little better than you if they have more experience. testing portfolio, how would that be made? So let me just jump onto my Creator Hub profile. Okay. Gotta find my. I just had it. I definitely have a link somewhere.
So, do you guys need tips for consoles? Or you guys know red errors or red text are important?
The
Because,
Talent Hub, actually.
because red text are bugs. They are actually bugs. And it's very important to send the red. The yellow warning is not as important because when there's yellow, it's just a
I
warning.
gotta like go to Spencer's Talent Hub in order to do
It's not
this.
like a very important thing. And when the yellow text is actually a lot, like it's spamming, then that's when you have to take screenshot of it so the developer can see what's going on. The last one is the white text. You can completely ignore it. It's not so important for the console, and the white text is just a guide or the game, what's currently going on. And for the lag issues, if you have FPS related, when you want to ask the developer that you have loud devices and currently run on 10 FPS, for example, you can say to them, and they have to figure out why the game is lagging. Just check out every single possible things in the game. For example, I said one time that a game was lagging and had very low performances. So they asked me what's the problem, and I checked the whole game and saw the lag spike and asked them that it might be possible that the coin is a lot in the map, and when each time it's collected, it might be laggy. The micro profiler can be the one that can help throughout the laggy process, but I'm not experienced with using the micro profiler, so I checked the whole game what the cause might be causing for the lag. And that's
All
the
right.
whole thing.
All right. Sorry, Frank. Okay. So now I've pulled up my Talent Hub profile. Here I've got a list of every game I've worked for, as well as a little brief description of here. This is on the Creator Hub, Talent Hub, and you're just going to work on it. You can just go to edit my creative page right here at the top, and you can work on your creator page. So this was brought up as someone was asking how they exactly do this. You just jump on there and you edit your creative page. If you have to log on in your Roblox account. This is obviously my alt because my main has some private information, but obviously I've given all of my best experiences. You don't want to put out every experience you've tested for because it's going to take you a while and some of it you might not want to display it on your profile. You don't want to have 1,000 simulators unless you're going to be a simulator tester. You want to highlight your best experiences. And so here, that's what I've done. I've worked with Walmart. I've worked with Care Bears. I've worked with DJ Simulator. I've worked with the Swedish House Mafia. I've worked with Clip It. I've worked at Fenty Beauty. I I did not work on Fish for that guy who's asking.
Nope. I got kicked out too for inactivity.
uh, so for anyone who's curious how you set up a portfolio for this is how you just jump onto the Creator Hub, you go into Talent, and you edit your creator page. It's a little confusing, but that's how you get it done.
Yes, and that's the way to get a lot of job opportunities for a hike studio.
Yeah.
So keep building from by working on small studio first, and put it in your portfolio, and then you build up to Hike Studio, and then you will work for them.
Right, so someone just asked, is it okay to report bugs that include Roblox glitches? For example, Slashy Dance 2. So it's one of those things where it depends on the game, of course. Right? If you're going into a game where that glitch will directly affect the game's how the game works and how it goes through, then yes, you're going to want to report that hey, this is still a glitch that happens. Can you fix it? And so this works with any game, is that if you find something that's game breaking or will cause the player to have an undue advantage, you're going to want to report that. But again, it depends on the game, right? Roblox glitches, some will be worthwhile and some you're going to want to report. Others, you might doesn't really matter. You can report it, but it's probably not going to be needed to be fixed, right? Because if someone just glitches the map to have fun and look at the assets that are far out in the way, it's not really going to affect the gameplay. But if it's going to directly affect the gameplay, like someone glitching out of the map to have an unfair advantage to survive around, then it's going to be something that you should definitely report if you're aware of it. Okay. Again, make sure you guys are typing in your questions into the testing best practices. I know a bunch of questions got asked in the class chat earlier. Just want to make sure everyone gets answered.
Yeah, and for the mistakes, for example, if you type touch typing and you cannot tell whether you make a mistake, I prefer using Grammarly. You paste it in Google Document, for example, and the Grammarly will tell whether you put typo or anywhere mistake, and then you paste it in the Discord, and there should be no mistake after that. I'm mostly touch typing, so I don't know where do I make mistake, and sometimes I'm too lazy to search for all the typo I make. So the Grammarly is mostly helping me, and I prefer it for everyone who is touch typing.
I have like 4 pings right now. Why is everyone messaging me right now?
So if you don't know what touch typing is, it's basically typing 10 fingers without looking at your keyboard. And sometimes when you are rushing, you're typing the whole things in the document, and you don't even look at the text at all. You're just thinking what you're going to write the feedback, and after that you write a lot of them. You are very lazy to see like where did I make a mistake in. So the best thing to use is Grammarly. Post the copy in the Google document and it will do everything for you. It's free. It's not even paid.
Okay, so we've got another question here. For QA Central, is it better to do one large write-up in a thread or to shoot off content as you come across it? So this is up to a personal preference. Depending on the thread, you can depending on the developer, some developers like to actively fix bugs as the testers are going through it. So in those cases, you're going to want to just shoot off all the bugs you find so they can fix them as they come up. However, if you can and you have the ability to and you plan on sticking around to the end of the test, because some testers you might be jumping in for 30 minutes and leaving immediately. If that's the case, then just jump in there and shoot off as many bugs as you can and leave if you're busy. But if you can, stick to the end, do a full write-off, and compile it into one cohesive thread. Because example of this, of how it can be an issue for developers. So I was doing QA lead for one of my friends, and I had to compile all the bugs and reports and threads into one document. I had to go through the entire thread, and people who shot off like the same feedback in just random chunks. It was I accidentally grabbed the same feedback twice. So if you're able to, try and do it into one cohesive thread, but you're not gonna no one's gonna get mad at you for shooting it off into one big block or into just small little blocks. Someone's gonna shoot off, but if you're trying to be as helpful to developer and QA leads as possible, you're going to want to do that in one big thread yourself. But again, both are options, but you should be striving for one large write up if you can, once you're able to and once you're comfortable with doing so. Okay. What mode is best for micro profiler? Detailed seems hard and framed seems okay, but not as much info. So when it comes to micro profiler, again, it's just whatever is needed in that moment, right? If you can immediately tell what the micro profiler is telling you and you understand what the micro profiler is telling you, then you're going to want to just do framed. If you just do framed and you know what's happening and it tells you that you're having lag spikes, that's all you need to do. But if you need to go more in depth, then you've got to of course go into detailed. Again, it depends on what the tester is. If you personally can't run detailed and you don't understand detailed, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. So when it comes to microprofiler, again, I will be doing an entire learning class about the microprofiler, so that way there are resources, because when it comes to microprofiler, it's really hard to find resources when it comes to it. So for both of these questions, when it comes to microprofiler, I'll just say it's scenario based, at least for now, until I'm able to do an entire learning class on the microprofiler. Okay. Should testers buy game passes in the game to test paid features? No. So here's the thing, is that developers within Studio, they're able to test paid features themselves. If you want to buy those game passes yourself and test them out, feel free. But you have no obligation in any way, shape, or form, nor should you likely spend that money unless you're absolutely willing to lose that money. Because ultimately, developers are able to test those paid features and how they work out themselves. So that would be one of those things where you just say, and oftentimes developers, if they have a paid feature that they should already have tested them themselves. But yeah, also some games will make them 1 Robux, so you can test them, or they'll make them free, depending. But if it's super expensive, don't buy it. But if the developer has made it like 1 Robux and it's a paid test, then yeah, you should absolutely buy them. If you don't have Robux and it's a paid test, again, you're fine if you don't have Robux. It just depends on what the developer is asking for, right? If they're asking you to do, if they're asking you to test out paid features and you don't have Robux, you obviously can't help out. I agree with that, Annie Strawberry. Annie, that there should certainly be reimbursements. Some developers don't reimburse, which kind of sucks, but as is the case, is that you'll always have some bad apples in the pie. When is the next learning class, and what topic is it going to be? Okay, so when it comes to the next learning class, it's going to be on the micro profiler and probably some additional within the game resources. We'll probably take a look at memory as well. And when it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be whenever I'm able to get some time together to not only get the proper resources together so I can speak confidently on the topic and answer questions, but also assuming I have time. I'm hopefully going to be having her out within a couple weeks, because at least for me, I'm going to be very, very light on any work within college or any other work or whatever. So I will be able to get this out a lot more frequently and do it a lot better than what I have been before. Again, I so apologize for this taking a year to have the next learning class. It's just personally, I had a lot of stuff that kept me busy, so I just couldn't do anything. Okay. We need ASMR talking. Oh no. Like this. Oh no. Okay. Extra guy, can you send your can you send your message again, please? I missed it. Oh, I feel so bad. No, we're never gonna read Extra's message.
Yeah, any is
Yeah.
true because if you are doing a job that people are asking for pay to do paid game passes and they actually don't pay you, I think it's not worth working for them.
So when it comes, so I'm guessing you're talking about the creator page. You need to log in order to be able to read the page. Oh. In what case does a QA tester need to have a lot of feedback or little feedback? So again, it's based off the game. If it has a little, so when it comes to feedback, it depends on what the developer's asking you for. If they're asking for the entire game of testing, then you're likely going to have enough content to be able to make a full feedback worth a full 300 whatever full 300 word feedback on the game. But if they're asking you for a specific small feature about the game, or they're just asking you to stress test stuff that really doesn't require a lot of description or speaking, then that's a case where you'd have less feedback to have to write. So I know so at least so for Vortex, I think it is. Yeah, just shoot me a message with whatever you have for me. I'll connect with you after the talk is done. Okay, what red flags should we look for when being hired by developers? So obviously, first things first, when it comes to being hired to developers, obviously just talk with them, right? If they lie about small things, or you can like reasonably prove that they don't have a reputation within the community, or if they're always fighting with people, those are key small things that you can take a look at that will immediately give you distrust. You want to take a look and see, right? Is this a very small developer? Is this a child? Like, look at their portfolio, look at who they are. Right? If someone's offering you an off, obviously, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. No one's going to pay you 100,000 Robux for a test. So obviously, use logic and reasoning. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm looking. Okay, so we've got one more. Okay, should testers report the smallest bugs / details like UI missing a few pixels on the left corner or grass floating above the ground? Yes. So it's one of those things where if small details can be very key for developers, some will require you to, like, again, small details are small details. If you can report them, report them. The developers will be happy, right? It's not as massive as a major bug you might have found that breaks the entire game, but it's still important, right? They're still key. So if you find something like a small UI missing some pixels or some grass floating around the ground, let them know. They might not fix it. They might not even care about it, but we're still report it. They want to be aware of it. Okay, and Chubby was asking, how do we get big jobs? So ultimately, big jobs are going to be down to you working on your portfolio and connecting with new people. Because the big thing with at least testing is that from what I found, networking is the best thing you can do to get bigger jobs, to get paid really well for your testing. Because ultimately, to all developers, you are a drop in the bucket, and nobody knows who you are. Having someone better known within the community who can vouch for you and vouch for your quality and vouch for your goodness, that will get you a lot further than trying to network and put out applications and do all that. So if you want the bigger jobs, if you want to do better, I absolutely recommend networking, right? Meet the right people, talk to a lot of people, get well known within the community, and you'll get a lot better jobs. Okay, Dan asks, I'm still not entirely sure to what to include in my creator page. How/where should I provide proof that I tested? Should I include screenshots of my feedback? So some of those, so let me pull up my creator page again. So on my creator page, we'll just jump onto Walmart, let's say. Right? Obviously, it's just got Walmart, it's got my description. So the best way you can show proof is it's going to be going to your, like, obviously I can prove the fact that I tested for Walmart because if I go to tester, let's see, where am I? Right there. There I am. I'm right there. Obviously, I can prove that I'm here. Those are some easy ones. And again, it's one of those things where if a developer asks for proof, you can send your feedback proof. You can say you test with QA Central and link to it. You don't necessarily need to outright prove everything you've done if it's been done within QA Central, right? We're a well-known community. A lot of people know that we've done it. But if you can get tester rank within the group, that's going to be great. One of the key examples is that I tested for Clip It, right? I was there beforehand. I was playing it well beforehand. If you go to the Clip It group, I'm not on the tester group. Obviously, I'm not here, but I know I was there. I've got people who would vouch for me that I was a tester there, and of course, I've got roles within the Discord that prove that I was an early tester. So while you don't outright need to prove that you've done everything, try and be descriptive, right? Don't just hide it out. So that's one of those things where so long as you just state where it was, how it happened, even if you don't have the role within the group, you'll still prove your worth. Okay, think do you think it's worth having the NDA contracts? So yes, I definitely agree with I love NDA contracts. But the thing is that you need to understand what an NDA is. You need to understand it. You can't just jump into NDA contracts and think that, oh, this is going to be the easiest thing, oh, I'm getting paid, and not read it. You need to read your NDA contracts. You need to be careful with what you do, and you need to understand a lot of the law, right? Law that's not too hard to understand, and it's usually in simple terms. But because again, the thing is that you'll get paid a lot more. Like I get paid a good amount for some of my NDA contracts. They're very nice. They pay decent. They pay a lot better than some of the tests within QA Central. But you need to just look at your NDA contracts and just be careful, right? It's not hard. Like there's some you just gotta remember with NDA contracts, anything that's public, you're allowed to speak on. Anything that isn't public, you're not allowed to speak on. So I am allowed to say I am a tester for X group. If the group has if the people who are coming to Roblox, like let's say before Walmart came to Roblox, right? The group was under a different name. If I said I was a Walmart tester, then I would have broken my NDA. But if it's very obvious that it's for Care Bears, for example, I became a tester with them when their name was public, when they publicly announced that they were coming to Roblox. Then I was allowed to say, hey, I'm a tester for Care Bears. I'm allowed to say it. I'm not allowed to say what was in Care Bears. I'm not allowed to say anything that isn't public. if a public person cannot find it with limited resources and not having someone break their NDA or go through secret back doors, then you're allowed to talk about it. But if they cannot find it with public information, then you're not allowed to talk about it, right? So just whenever it comes to NDA contracts, I think if you have the capacity and you get offered an NDA contract, I think you should sign it so long as the terms are, as long as you've read the terms and you've been very careful about it. So it's an NDA contract is usually the pinnacle of a tester's career, and it's some of the best paying contracts you can get. So they're great, but you need to be careful. So it's currently QA Central sometimes offers NDA contracts for testers here. So that's really, really good. Yeah, so NDAs usually they last up to 5 years. 5 years and then the contract is ended. But if something's still not public, you're not allowed to talk about it. You need written permission in order to usually speak about the topic. So it's one of those things where realistically with NDAs, you're not going to get sued by the company, right? It's not worth it for them for the legal fees. But if you break an NDA, that's going to ruin your reputation within the community, and it's not going to be worth it in any way, shape, or form, right? So while you realistically don't have to worry about having your pantsuit off, you also need to understand is that like it's not only you getting sued at being at risk, it's also your personal reputation within the QA testing community. So Devo Dude asked if QA Central will be offering more NDAs in the future. I don't know. So it's something we have a small program for it. However, it's only because we've got contract because we personally work with certain people who have already agreed to exclusively NDA test through QA Central. Or we have the QA lead, AK Frosty, who does his NDA testing through QA Central because he's the QA lead for Sawhorse. So while I can't really answer that, I said maybe. We keep trying to expand it because we want opportunities for testers, but I cannot guarantee expansion nor any sort of opportunities. What's the minimum age you need to be in NDA? You can be any age. You just need to have your parents co-sign if you're under 18, which essentially just delegates the responsibility of the NDA. So if you leak the NDA, then your parent gets sued instead of you. So we have an article on that in frequently asked questions. I'll just send it in chat here. Yeah, when it comes to NDAs, just read everything and make sure you agree with every single point. Don't just sign NDAs blindly. That's my key thing with NDAs. Is just don't sign them blindly. Read them, understand them, and then sign them. What does it take to become an experienced tester and active tester? So if I'm not mistaken, active tester is going to be our people who have just provided who have participated in five tests every month. Now I don't know if we already have that set up with the bot where we'll automatically give you the role, but that's I don't know. Well, if anything, I think it's coming with bot 3.0. I'd have to delegate to Ninja for that. But when it comes to experienced tester, those are going to be our veteran testers. Those are going to be the people who we think have done the best tests ever. Well, not really the best tests ever, but they've been with us for a long while. They know their stuff, and we can reliably say that everyone who has that role is some of the most experienced testers we have within QA Central. Those guys are going to give you the best feedback you're ever going to see. What's the difference between QA lead and admins? So QA lead is going to be your people. They just handle the actual QA lead stuff. So they're going to be looking at tests. They're going to be talking with developers. They're just going to be going over everything. Where it comes to admins, me as an admin, I'm just a little bit more active within the actual management of QA Central. So I'm helping out with, we've got our QA Central hub that we're working on. We've got a couple more managerial aspects to it. So that's key there. How to get QA lead. So the QA lead is handpicked. So it's going to be but the best thing I can say is that if you're active, if you're with our community and you've proven to be very, very responsible, you're going to be one of those candidates we look at. We're not just going to pick someone who's active for 2 months and then leaves. Obviously, you need to be around here for a little longer. We've got to get to know you, just like a moderator position. We don't just hire anybody. It goes through the team. We look at everybody. If we think you're a good match, we'll add you. I believe we just added a new QA lead today. It was Deb Stefanel. So welcome to the team, Deb. Very nice to have you. What is QA Central Hub going to be? So that's going to be where we're going to be hosting the awarding of our QA Central hat, and it's going to also be a area where we can also host some more test outs. Right? We're currently working on developing it, as we haven't hired anybody else to help out. It's solely on the shoulders of me, Frosty, Ninja, and other people within the team to create it. So it's taking a little bit of time to get it done, but we've been working on it for quite a while, and we're hopefully trying to get out as soon as possible, because all of us have been working on it for way too long. That you're not allowed to know, Ghoul. Any other questions, guys? All right, let's hear it. Okay. So when it comes to if you don't discover bugs, your feedback does still matter, right? Because you might not have maybe all the bugs that you would have found were found by somebody else, right? So long as the developer knows you've participated, right? And the key thing is that your feedback will still matter so long as you actually provide good feedback, right? If you're playing a game about digging up dirt and you talk about fishing, obviously the developers knows you're not going to you haven't played the game, and so that your feedback doesn't matter. But suggestions and feedback, they still matter even if you haven't found a bug within the game. That's going to be key there. Besides, while QA stands for quality assurance, it's not just finding bugs. It's about providing feedback and leaving the developer to improve their game upon your playtesting, because QA involves both playtesting and quality assurance. Okay, so if we don't have any more, do we have any more questions? Any more questions? Okay, we got a question. Yeah, QA is usually done by for good developers. They'll usually do the first bits of QA. Do you have like a mentorship for new testers? So indirectly, I'd say. So obviously, a lot of us QA leads and QA and admins will jump into the tests from occasion, and we'll of course test alongside the new testers. So that's going to be where, like, of course, we'll help lead by example and do our own testing. But in terms of like actual one-on-one testing, we don't have that directly offered right now. But yeah, when it comes to quality assurance, with good developers, they should be doing their own QA testing before the QA testers get in, so they can fix those easy bugs before the QA testers. But obviously, sometimes that doesn't happen, and they just finish it and say, "Here, find me all my bugs, please." So, a question for. Okay, and the last, well, we'll leave that. Kyle, we'll leave that for like the last question, because I've got. Once we're done, most of the questions I've got a reveal. I've got a reveal. Okay. Okay, it seems as though we don't have any more questions. So, of course, we've talked. Yes, there will be. There will be another class. I'm hoping to get it done here soon. So, without further ado, I have a small reveal because we did talk about the hub earlier. So every class I like to reveal a little bit of something to make it a little fun, right? Make it worthwhile. No, you haven't, Ghoul, because that's been all adjusted. So I would like to reveal a small snippet of what we've been working on. So here's what she's gonna be. So these are just a couple assets I've been working on for the hub. Obviously, you'll see these guys later. Just a small little snippet of what we've been working on within the hub and what I've been working on myself. So, small little reveal. Weird shards. Correct. Do they remind you of anything? I think someone's got it. There you go. Oh no. Shards. That you might wanna adjust your message there. But yes, a couple people have gotten it correctly. I've gotten it correct. So that is my small reveal for the hub. I hope you guys all. So for the last question is, did you guys enjoy this little lesson? This.
I did.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, the
You
final
know,
question: did you guys enjoy this class?
it's funny when people call me that I sound like Amir. I don't know who that is.
Do some YouTube Shorts meme. All right. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who came out. Again, it is the 30th. We're getting pretty close. I know we're getting pretty close to New Year's and we just came off of Christmas, but I wanted to get this out so that way, going further into the new year, a bunch of you guys who joined are able to heighten your elevation of your QA testing and make the best threads
Yes.
we've ever seen.
I gave Buzz the whole guide. I helped him a lot, and that's all I see. Buzz is saying everything. He's the best guy.
But yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. If I don't get to see you, QA Central is going to rock next year.
For sure, 2025.
Again, this will be up as a YouTube video sometime later. So I hope everyone enjoyed. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. To the 4 people who are watching the stream, the 19, 20 people who were in the audience for this live. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you in the next learning class. Goodbye.
See ya.